But no, we've talked enough bullet wounds and buttholes here, so we've got to get into the lead topic. Now, the lead topic this week is Tucker Carlson is going to Moscow, and the interview will be out by the time this airs. But he's going to Moscow to interview Vladimir Putin. Have you followed any of this?
Yeah, I've followed that, and I just actually recently watched his interview with the Argentinian president before he was elected.
Javier Milei.
Yeah, I've watched that one. I watched the Spain one. He's gone around to see a bunch of different political leaders from different countries. This is nothing. It's nothing new.
No,
but people are freaking out.
The establishment media has lost their mind about this.
And why are they freaking out? You may ask.
Because he's doing the job they're supposed to do, which is telling both sides of the story, not puppeting regime talking points.
Or because Putin's getting ready to share America's bullshit. I talked to a lot of people that don't realize how much we provoked that war.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
oh, yeah.
we literally, there was a guy on Stephen Colbert's show in 2014 that was talking about how the United States was trying to pull Ukraine from underneath Russia's rug, and how Russia had a red line that if you try to mess with Ukraine, they are going to go to war.
I remember that.
Over it. It's been a common knowledge, and in 2019, they had that, Naomi was her name or something like that. There was literally a U.S. official that handpicked the ministry, Zelensky's ministry, in 2019, handpicked by the U.S. government.
Oh, it's a corrupt, absolutely.
It's an illegitimate government in Ukraine by any sense of the mean, if we're actually respecting democracy.
Yeah.
But to say that you're a Putin supporter, you're anti-American, I don't remember when Ukraine became America.
Yeah, when did it? Well, I mean, you saw the border bill that came out, right? Where they gave more money to Ukraine than they actually did the U.S. border. They care more about the Ukrainian border than they do the U.S.-Mexico border.
Well, you should call that the Ukrainian. You should call that Ukrainian bill, because they're trying to give money to Ukraine in Israel, and they're trying to give a little crumb with the border bill. They're trying to give a little crumb to the Republicans, so the Republicans could go back to their constituents and lie and say, we got this for the border. But if you don't change any of the asylum laws, you're not going to fix the problem at the border.
Well, I actually don't think it was that. I don't think that they were giving a crumb to the Republicans. I think what they did was they knew the Republicans would see that and go, absolutely not. This is a U.S. border bill. We're not giving $60 million to Ukraine here. We're not going to vote for that. So that way the Democrats could turn around and go, look, see, they're the reason the border's still open. All they have to do is vote yes to the biggest funding, the biggest bill for the border, funding for the border that we've ever had. Even though the majority of that funding actually is never going to the U.S. border, they're the reason we can't fund it. It's their fault.
Yeah,
it's not Biden's fault.
And then the cherry on top of that is then they leaked the fact that, I don't think they leaked it. Trump was very open about it. Trump's taking credit for vetoing that bill pretty much and telling Republicans not to sign on to that. So then they can go, oh, look, Trump is saying don't give support to the border because he wants it as a political issue in the election. And so he doesn't even care about the border. So it's delegitimizing the actual concerns of real Republicans.
And Trump's a meatball for taking the bait there. He should have known. He needs to be more savvy with how he navigates politics, because this, honestly, everything aside, policy disagreements aside, that was actually a brilliant move by Biden, because that puts the ball in your opponent's court. Yeah. You send out something ridiculous that they're never going to approve, that's never going to get through, that may have kind of funded the border. But ultimately, that's not what the majority of the bill does. A lot of it was waste. A lot of it was money on something you knew was a contentious issue. So that way you can take it and say, look, now it's your fault. Now we can point the finger at you and say it's your fault. The Republicans should clap back. The Republicans should say, okay, how about this? $20 billion for the border, but we legalized machine guns. Democrats, what do you say? What do you have to say, Democrats? How about no more National Firearms Act? What do you think? How about we build a statue of Clarence Thomas right outside of the White House? What do you think?
Yeah, but if we're actually being honest, how many establishment Republicans actually share those views? People like Mitch McConnell and all of them that aren't signing off on this bill are the same people that don't want you to have machine guns. They want to keep these issues going, and they want to send money to Ukraine because it goes back to the military-industrial complex.
They're the uniparty. The Mitch McConnells, the Lindsey Grahams.
That's why I don't like dealing with Republican and Democrats. It's really anti-establishment versus establishment. 100%. It's really the populace. And so you have to look at everybody that's campaigning. You got to look at where they're getting their money from. Yep. Like I used to like DeSantis, and then he was getting all this donor money. Then his views started to change on a lot of things, and you could just tell that person doesn't have the best interest of the American people at heart. Yeah, it's a uniparty, and they just keep going, and it's the same families for generations and generations. But I mean, the Ukraine and the Israel thing, why are we getting bogged down? I mean,
we can't even take care of people here. We can't even take care of our national sovereignty.
Just get back to Tucker Carlson. He just had Brent Weinstein on, who is that COVID guy. He went actually down to the Darius Gap and started interviewing those migrants, if you want to call them that. You can call them invaders too, depending on your viewpoint. But he went down and interviewed them in the camps and whatnot. It's a lot of economic migrants, and then there's also Chinese nationalists. There's Chinese nationals that have their own camp in Panama that are shipping people up, and they're making it systematic, and they don't like America.
Right.
They're very open and very hostile towards America and towards American journalists actually interviewing him and exposing the camps. He wasn't allowed inside of that camp to even interview a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's to call it anything less than an invasion is just being ridiculous. Well, but also, they're unarmed. So what are you going to do? You can't shoot back. You can't just shoot unarmed people.
You can't shoot them. Otherwise, you got a humanitarian crisis, and that gives China and Russia all this ammunition to use against us on a global scale.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, back to Carlson with Putin. So here's my issue with this, because the entire mainstream media is coming out going after Tucker Carlson for this. I mean, they're at his throat, calling him, going as far to say he's a traitor for going out to interview a guy. Last time I checked, hello, he's a journalist. You interview journalists, or you're a journalist, you interview people. That's what you do. You get both sides of the story. You let your audience make up their minds on their own. You don't feed corporate establishment talking points to people, which is what the Foxes and the CNNs and the MSNBCs have done since this entire thing started. Everyone that's interviewed Zelensky, nobody's pressed him on anything. They basically just sucked him off and told him how great he was. I love your green sweater, Vladimir.
Dude, why doesn't he wear a suit?
Look me in the eyes when you mouth fuck me.
That bothers me so much. Why does he not wear a suit?
He has what? I don't even care if it's a suit. Wear something else.
It's such an act. Like, we get it. Your country is at war. You can still wear a suit. I didn't see Churchill coming out in pajamas.
No.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I mean, they're taking the Matt Rife approach to it. Somebody that's getting so big, and then they find one little thing that they're able to attack, and they attack it hard as heck. You know, and if in the Ukraine thing, you're not allowed to say anything good about Russia because everybody has this mind virus with the Russia Gate sting. It's the new not Iraq everybody, but at least 50% of the population just genuinely believe that Russia is Trump's a puppet of Russia. Russiagate actually happened, and all this other stuff. So when you go and interview Putin, it's like, oh, you're on that side.
Do you know why? Do you remember why Trump got the Russian puppet label? Do you remember why back in the 2016 election? What got him that?
Because he peed on all those hookers.
No, that was fake. It was 4chan started that. But no, what started it was Trump dared to say, because Hillary came from the Obama administration, right? That had a very, very hard stance on Russia. So Trump came forward and said, hey, you know, these guys have the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, the second largest military in the world. We've had a real shaky history with them. They have a leader that's a little unstable. Maybe it's a good idea if we don't make it our national policy to antagonize them with everything we do. And everyone was like, oh my God, he's a traitor. What do you mean you don't want to sit there and antagonize a nuclear superpower that's constantly threatening us? And if you remember, for about 3.5 to 4 years under Donald Trump, you didn't hear a whole lot from Russia. They did some little things, but nothing to what they did under Biden. And you didn't hear nothing from China at all. Trump dared to say that, hey, maybe we don't have to be friends with them, but we probably shouldn't go out of our way to piss him off. It's like, you ever have like a psycho neighbor? You guys maybe you might be the unhinged neighbor in this case, but the guy's just unhinged. He's crazy. And it's like, I don't want to be friends with that guy. But I'm not going to go in his yard and just start pissing on his flowers. You know what I mean? I'm not going to try to piss him off.
Yeah. My question is why don't we want to be friends with Russia?
There's no reason not to.
It's not the USSR anymore.
No.
And if you look back into every major conflict over the last 2,000 years, eventually peace has to be found. Germany and France have been going back to war, and Britain and France have been going to war forever, and then they become friends again. They argue over the same amount of territory. Russia is a part of Europe. It's undeniable, and to have them as an ally would actually be an asset.
100%, especially with their resources.
Why are they the enemy? They're no longer communist, okay? They're an authoritarian dictatorship, but there are so many authoritarian dictatorships out there.
Dude,
and it's not our job to dictate how a government runs its own country. It's our job to show them that our way of governance is the best way, so that the populace in that country will demand our form of governance. We can't force it on anybody, and every time we have a CIA coup, it falls back in our lap as a shit show. You can just name the country.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is if we want to sit here and finger wag at Russia about having an authoritarian dictatorship, and that's why we can't not even align ourselves with them, but at least have cordial relations with them. we're going to have to start looking at a lot of the people we consider to be allies. Look at Canada. Look at what Justin Trudeau did under or during the COVID regime.
What, where he just took away people's bank accounts for donating to the
if
truckers?
People said they had any problem with the lockdowns and the vaccine policies, they shut their bank accounts down. They took their children from them. They took their pets from them.
Yeah.
They took their homes from them. They went full on communist, threw people in prison for daring to protest their government. If Russia did that, it would be on the front page of the news every single day about why we need to send more money to Ukraine. If a Middle Eastern or African country did that, we'd have the CIA there the next day implementing regime change. But because it was Canada and because it was in the name of
what about Saudis, though?
We let it fly. And they're right up to right up to the north of us. There is an authoritarian regime a lot closer to the United States than Russia, and it's called Canada.
We don't truly care if you're authoritarian. Just look at our relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Right. If we have something,
we literally don't care if you commit a terrorist attack on our soil.
If we can gain something,
we'll facilitate it.
Yeah.
If we can get another country out of it, we'll facilitate an attack on the U.S. soil. And it's not too far fetched. I mean, they had plans to divide Iraq with the 4 major oil companies on Dick Cheney's desk before 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
Yep.
That is real.
Yep.
Why'd we go into Iraq? What was the real question behind that? And we know that was Saudi nationals that attacked us. And how is the Crown Prince not similar to Putin? How is he not similar in an authoritarian way? The thing is that we have a generation that has been told that the USSR is the bad guy and they are our enemy. And during the Cold War, they were our enemy. Economically and militarily, we fought proxy wars with them, and we won. Mm-hmm. We beat them. Communism failed, and the Iron Curtain fell. And then we also promised that we would not go an inch east with NATO, and now we're right on their freaking doorsteps. We now have a 900-mile border with NATO and Russia. That is a straight border to a nuclear war. Why are those countries not actual buffer zones? But the counter argument always is that he's going to keep on going. He's going to steamroll right through Ukraine.
He didn't for a long time.
And a lot of people don't know this, but Russia had the ability to completely steamroll Ukraine like we steamrolled Iraq. He went in there with 40,000 troops, and when he got close to Kyiv, that is when they were talking about signing the peace deal in 2021 or 2022, about a year or two ago, and then Boris Johnson flew there, which, if you remember the time, if anybody had a brain, that was the stupidest thing anybody could do, because if Russia fucking bombed and killed the prime minister of Britain in Kyiv, it would have been all-out war. It would have been all-out war. But we know now that according to we have the documents that says that Boris Johnson went there and nuked the peace deal, and now a whole generation of Ukrainians are dead, and they didn't gain an inch. Their spring offensive didn't gain an inch, and now they have
total failure.
They have worse peace deals negotiations than they did during that time. Just look it up.
Have you seen the videos? Have you seen the videos of the new recruits getting drafted?
Yeah, it's old women and children.
40, 50 years old.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. A whole generation of Ukrainians, and they were sold a lie by us, and we're responsible for telling them that we would back them no matter what, because we were just money laundering. We were money laundering, and like people like Tim Scott.
40% of the money that went to Ukraine actually made it to Ukraine. Nobody knows what the other 60%.
And then how much went back to Boeing? How much went back to Lockheed Martin? Tim Scott, Mitch McConnell, they're all on record saying, "Oh, this is just a loan. It's going to come back to the military contractors." It did. Well, we sold them the weapons.
Yeah, we sold them the weapons. Right. So we bought the money, and guess who had money invested in these contractors? Oh, Mitch McConnell, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Nikki Haley, all the same goons that like to come out and show for this war in Ukraine happen to make a fuck ton of money off of it. Yeah. What a surprise.
And it's stupid to say that we did this, because it was them. It was our government officials that actually did it. It was with our money. They took our taxpayer monies that we involuntarily gave to the U.S. government on force of jail if we don't pay our taxes, gave that money to Ukraine so that they could give it back to Lockheed Martin and all the lobbyists, and then when they're done in politics, they're going to go work for those people and make even more money. The United States government is straight stealing from the American people, and the American people are flying Ukraine flags like it's a patriotic thing to do.
If you have a Ukrainian flag in your bio, I think you're a retard. That's immediately, I assume you're going to say something.
I have this conversation with logical people, and they genuinely believe that he's going to steamroll through, and he doesn't even want those zones that they currently occupy. He wants them to be anonymous, or not. What's the word I'm looking for here? They want self-governing zones that are able to speak actual Russian and have their own sovereignty over Ukraine. It just doesn't make any sense why we're supporting that.
Well, and back to your point on Ukraine and expanding NATO. it was said a long time ago that Ukraine would never be a member of NATO.
Yes.
Biden, I mean, aside from putting missiles on the border, which he did, which was antagonistic, Biden decided to violate that treaty and go, you know what? We might make Ukraine a NATO member. What the hell was he thinking when he did that?
Which is a red line for Russia. And
they're
Putin
flat out, and Russia said that. And I mean, that's a treaty that was agreed on 30 years ago. And Joe Biden has decided to go directly violate that treaty. Why? It's like we're either in the car with a drunk driver or someone that's stone cold sober but wants to drive us off a cliff.
Because there's such a history of corruption in Ukraine. It's such a money laundering scheme for the elites, and they just don't care. If you don't think they care about you, they really don't care about the Ukrainian populace. And that's why half of them are dead.
Guess who's being contracted to go in and rebuild Ukraine? JP Morgan Chase, BlackRock. Go figure, right? Guess who they have all their money in? JP Morgan Chase, BlackRock, two of the elite companies, right? Those companies
the real leaders of the government.
Establishment as it gets.
Yeah.
Regime as it gets. I mean, just imagine for a second what we would do. Say Russia had some treaty with Guatemala and Belize, and Russia was like, and we told Russia, hey, you do your thing in Guatemala and Belize, run your little military operations, that's fine, but you do not go into Mexico. And they're like, oh, we won't. And for 30 years, it was good. And then all of a sudden, a new president comes into Russia, and he decides to put missiles right on the Texas and New Mexico border. That's essentially what we did.
Yeah.
And then he said, you know what? I'm thinking about bringing Mexico into my little alliance, too. I think we're going to go into Mexico, actually. We're going to remove the president, and we're going to set up a puppet regime there that's going to do exactly what we say. And he's going to report back to us, and he'll say he doesn't, but he does, and we're going to fund everything they do. How do you feel about that, America? Dude, we would invade Mexico that day.
Yeah, but you don't do it via military. You do it by economically. You start trade deals with them, and you start dealing with them more so that they're dealing with the West and backing the U.S. dollar more than they're trading with Russia. And that's how you steal a country away from the...
Right.
It makes all this sense. The Monroe Doctrine that we had was we're going to control the Western Hemisphere. If any superpower comes into these continents, we're going to take it as a threat because we're going to control this area. It doesn't make any sense. And the other argument with that I hear a lot is that, Russia's really weakened. Russia's weakened by this. No, they're not.
No,
they're not at all. They put their whole economy onto a military footing, not a full-blown war economy like in World War II, but they're on their factories are building tanks and bombs now, and they had the mobilization. Putin just did an interview with the Russian media where they mobilized 300,000 people, and he was asked if they need to mobilize again. And he said, "We don't need to. We're getting 1,500 volunteers a day into the army. We wanted to get 400,000. We got 486,000 volunteers into our forces." That is 500,000 troops that are now being trained in real life combat and real life strategy.
And people over here don't get it. Russia's not like the United States. And we've talked about, Nick Kohler knows a lot because he actually, when he was in the military, that was his specialty, was they were studying getting ready to fight Russia. We don't realize under the Obama administration how close we came to an actual physical war with Russia on multiple occasions. That was his specialty. So we've brought him on here and interviewed him about that a couple of times. And one of the things he pointed out is you don't realize just how nationalistic Russia is. It's not like the United States where half the country shits on everything the government does, and 3/4 of us are skeptical of everything they do. Most of them are on board with this. Yeah, they'll show the videos of the protests, but if you look at the polling for the wars and when you said the people volunteering, way more people support their military actions. They think they have a right to Ukraine. So you're not going to win the propaganda war against Russia. That's over. They've got their people on their side, and when they don't have their economy full blown into the war machine yet, but when they do, we're going to be fucked.
They do have a right. It's naive. I know I'm going to get a lot of slack from this, but it's naive to act like a superpower like Russia does not have the right to have a swaying influence in the countries near it. And the thing about Mexico that's different from Ukraine is Russia's been invaded 3 times in its history, with Hitler, Napoleon, and one other one, through Ukraine, through those planes, and then the majority of the population of Russia.
That I love about Hitler.
But Can you imagine if somebody invaded us 3 times throughout our history in Mexico and everything up to Kansas City was burned and scorched to the earth and we had to rebuild it 3 times? We'd be very defensive if anybody came near Mexico.
Absolutely.
That's Russia's position. And we want the war so bad because after the fall of the Berlin Wall, we've had complete control over the world because they were the number 2 and they fell off the face of the earth.
Yep.
They couldn't do it because communism doesn't work.
No,
we have a better system of governance and we took it too far.
And that's why Russia and China are such a threat now, because they've got market economies with command forms of government. So you've got strongman governments that are, autocracies, but at the same time, you've got a market economy, so your people aren't starving to death. Yeah. And that's why it's scary. Well, I want to play Tucker's video real quick. Have you seen his monologue yet?
About the interview?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll play it for everyone else, and then maybe we'll show the whole thing. Maybe we won't. We'll see.
They are history-altering developments. They will define the lives of our grandchildren.
I like
Most
that
of the
part,
world
'cause it's
understands
so true.
this perfectly
It's
well.
so
They
true.
can
Our
see
grandchildren.
it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that nothing has really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission. For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they have done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky, and we hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into the war.
I wonder if he offers a piano in the interview if Zelensky will accept.
Pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people.
Why can't Americans accept the fact that we're propagandized all the time?
Yeah.
Media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birth.
So I won't play the whole thing because it's like a 5-minute clip, but you guys kind of get the gist of it. So he goes on to say they actually intended to do this about a year ago. And
what? Who?
Go over there.
Oh, yeah.
And the Biden administration hacked their cell phone.
Hacked his Signal account.
Well, they didn't. So you can't hack Signal, but they somehow got a hold of the actual
messages.
phone and got in. Yeah. So if you can get into the phone, you can see Signal. So it's essential. But yeah, so they got into his Signal account and they sabotaged it. And I mean, didn't they revoke their passports or something like that?
I don't know the full details for that, but you also got to remember that there's that Pegasus, the Israeli spyware exists, and they no longer need you to click a link. How they got the
they can get it if they just need a number. Phone, you are not safe anymore.
Yeah, they just need your number. And they can have full access to your phone. So everything on your phone is never safe, ever. Nope. Everything that you do online, the governments of the world can see it if you're powerful enough.
If they care enough, yeah.
Yeah, they sabotage it. It's stupid, too. The argument that, he's a traitor and all that's also stupid. Because Barbara Walters interviewed Fidel Castro, right? Journalists interviewing adversaries. Megyn Kelly.
They interviewed Saddam Hussein. Megyn Kelly interviewed Putin.
Megyn Kelly interviewed Putin in 2015.
Here's the difference. Megyn Kelly, Barbara Walters... They're establishment media.
Censored.
Tucker Carlson's not. Tucker Carlson, he bows to no network. So now they don't have control over the narrative. They don't get editing rights over what's said and what's actually released. They don't get to do that now, and that's where they have a problem with it. They're fine if insert establishment journalist here goes over and talks. Don Lemon goes over and talks to Putin. He wouldn't do it. Because Putin wouldn't talk to him.
Because he's gay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he's gay. They'd kill him.
Yeah, because he's gay.
I mean, whatever establishment news anchor there is, they have no problem with those guys interviewing Putin. Like I said, he wouldn't do it for a whole slew of reasons. But when somebody like Tucker Carlson interviews him, somebody with that big of a platform that has as much reach as he does and bows to no one and is just going to release the full uncut interview, all of a sudden he's public enemy number one. I mean, you've got... My question here is, why would the Biden administration attempt to intentionally sabotage a journalist from going over and conducting an interview unless they knew there was something that was going to get exposed in that interview that they didn't want people to see that would sway public opinion?
Well, it's a lot of the stuff that I just said.
Yep.
It's a lot of the stuff that I just said. It genuinely made sense why Russia invaded Ukraine. From a Russian standpoint, from a strategic defense.
I want to make that clear.
And I'm not pro-war. I'm not pro-war, but it makes sense why they did what they did. Yeah,
we absolutely painted them into a corner, and we continued to escalate things. This administration, who claimed when they took office that the adults were back in charge, they are incapable of de-escalating anything. Everything they do, they turn the temperature up, whether it's domestically or foreign. All they do is continue this inflammatory rhetoric, and they just rile people up.
I also think they're scared of Tucker Carlson because if you go back and you listen to his actual speeches, his speech in Alberta is really good where he goes to Canada, makes fun of Canada a little bit. It's pretty crappy jokes, but he's borderline Christian nationalist. And if you actually listen to what he's talking about, he's warning mainly Christians, but he's warning the nationalists of Canada and of America that the time to arm yourself and get ready is now.
Absolutely.
He's the only person that I actually listen to. He doesn't say it directly and full out, but if you listen to the interview, he is warning that the time is coming where we are going to need to arm ourselves and defend ourselves from these people that are trying to kill you. He makes a really good point in the Alberta speech where he talks about if they don't want you to reproduce, that means they want you dead.
Yep.
All the people that are very pro-abortion, all the people that are pro the eugenics and pro pushing the LGBT, which leads to not
economic forum.
Which leads to not reproducing. They want you dead. If they don't want you to have children, then they want you dead. And that message is scary. And the elites are scared because they know that's the truth. The higher up ones, the actual Larry Finks and the Carl Schwabs, that's what they want. They want to replace you with cheap labor and several other things.
AI, yep.
Yeah, and Tucker Carlson's the only one that's full-blown saying it. That's not a nut job like Alex Jones.
Yep.
He doesn't talk like me, which is really fast and really chaotic and pacefully. No, it's very, very systematic, kind of jokingly, and he knows how to ask the right questions.
He doesn't go on and say that.
He doesn't do that. Yeah, he doesn't go, the frogs are turning fucking gray.
Which was actually true.
It was, which is insane.
But yeah, so no, you're completely right. Tucker Carlson is a huge threat to them, and that's the big thing, is he's not saying anything new. He's not saying anything that's particularly new.
No.
You can find talk hosts that are saying it. The problem was he says it in a way where he doesn't sound like a madman.
And he reaches the boomers.
He reaches the boomers, and
he sets up his new network like Fox News for the boomers.
Yep.
Go on his website. It looks like it's freaking Fox News. It does not look like a PBD podcast. It does not look like Breaking Points. It looks like Fox News. And he's going on there and telling the boomers they're coming for you and your kids and your grandchildren, and we're moving away from the U.S. dollar because of it. He's telling the real things, and that's why people are really scared of it. And you're just going to get a lot of hate if you say it out loud.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I just what's happened to journalism in this country to where this guy's looked at as some type of traitor because he actually did his job?
Well, I think what happened to journalism was the course of over 100 years, and the course of radio and newspapers and TVs being able to be captured by the elites and be able to be censored. It's happened all throughout history. If you look into like Austria-Hungary and Metternich and the secret
police,
they're
mouthpieces. Yeah,
yeah, they controlled the news outlets left and right, and so that anybody that had any dissenting views would have to go out of the country and try to get their newspapers in until a new form of media came in through that country. Whether it was the printing press back in the 1500s, 1600s. Whether it's the printing press, whether it's radio and all that, it revolutionized the way people got their information, and then it radicalized the populace against the elites because they were able to actually see what's going on.
Yep.
And then the elites were able to capture it and silence it.
This is like having Alex Jones on my show.
When was the last time that you actually read a paper newspaper? I read the Omaha World Herald actually a lot. I had to buy, my phone was broken, so this Monday I bought the World Herald for entertainment at work. And
wow, you must have been bored.
Well, I do on breaks. I read the paper occasionally because I use it to wash my windows and whatnot. So
sure.
I read the paper and then I use it to wash my windows and wipe my ass because that's all it's really good for.
Yeah.
But it's pure propaganda. You can tell.
There's a reason they're going bankrupt, because people are finally starting to realize it.
You can tell. And if you don't believe me, and I brought up the Alberta interview, if you also look to the local news that covered the Alberta interview that he had, the speech that he had, they call him a conspiracy theorist. They call him radical. They call him they give him these adjectives to people that they don't like to make you already dislike them.
Far right,
disinformation, whatever the buzzword is, they're going to add it to the person. Carlson, and then so you already are skeptical, and then you don't need to hear what they have to say. They didn't play any of his actual speech. Maybe they took a 30-second soundbite, and that's because for the last 50 years, the news has been able to work under those sound bites.
Because when the speech comes out, people go, oh, that's pretty rational.
Yeah, because if the people are able to actually listen to a 50-minute speech on their way to work, on their 9 to 5, with their slave wages, where they're being kept down, and they're like, wait a minute, they're doing this to me in a long form, they're actually able to hear somebody's thoughts, it makes a lot more sense than a sound bit of, they're turning the frogs gay!
Well, and that's exactly it, is Joe Rogan really changed the game with that, with the long
Yeah, I would say podcast
Joe Rogan changed the
it.
game, because you're right, the media for the longest time was based off of 30-second sound bites, and if it didn't fit into a 30-second sound bite, people weren't going to pay attention to it. But Joe Rogan came around and he proved, I mean, he beats the mainstream media every single month in ratings. Joe Rogan came along and he proved that people would actually prefer to listen to it. Yeah, they're turning the friggin' frogs gay as a clip. It's funny, it's entertaining, it gets clicks. But when you sit him down and he talks about how there actually there was
it's changing the sexes of frogs and
where
the
companies
links,
were dumping chemicals into the water that were giving frogs homosexual tendencies, and these entire species or these entire colonies of frogs were dying out because they weren't reproducing, and they're putting that same shit into our water, and more people are identifying as LGBTQ 4K HD TV plus than ever before. And the same people that are responsible for putting this stuff in our water are also on TV talking about how we need to decrease the population. There's a lot of dots that are connecting there.
And to tie it back into Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, the thing that makes the Joe Rogan work when he has Alex Jones on is Alex Jones it's almost mentally issue, like the way he looks at all the data and he finds it all and he's able to articulate it and shout it all out. And Joe Rogan is unbiased in a lot of his opinions.
Joe keeps him on course though.
Yeah,
because Alex likes to trail off.
Joe's not a right winger. Joe wants to hear the information and
what do you mean, Alex? Go back
questions.
to that. What do you mean by that?
Same with Tucker. Tucker will have on these people that have these fringe ideas, and he'll ask the right questions at the right time and make it palatable to people that don't already know the information. Because if you just come out with the facts right away, people think you are nuts. But if you're actually able to sit down with somebody that's rational and plays the middle, which I think Joe Rogan does the best job of playing in the middle, because he's a progressive. He has always been a progressive. He has socialist, not socialist, but he cares about the well-being of the public.
He's anti-establishment, so he's
anti-establishment, and he leans conservative when it comes to finances, but he also cares about the general populace, and he believes that trans people exist, and he believes in all of these progressive issues, so he's able to sit down and play the middle ground on it, so people can actually listen to it, because they don't think he's just a bigot right off the bat.
But what
can't paint him that way.
But what has the mainstream media tried to do anyway? Paint him as a right-wing bigot. That's exactly what they've done.
Paint him as a bigot.
That's exactly what they've done. What do you think of Andrew Tate?
I don't like him.
I don't either. I'm not a fan.
I don't like him. I don't like him because of the way that he made his money with the girls. I just don't believe in sexual depravity.
Because the problem with him is I'll hear him talk, and he makes some really good points. And again, he's saying nothing new. He's just packaging it in a way that reaches more people. But he makes some good points, but I can't get over the way he came up. Now, if he were to have said, hey, I did this thing, I made a lot of money doing it, it's how I got started, and I feel horrible about it. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to give to charities that help women that have been trafficked because I really fucked up and I really feel bad. That would be different. But this is a guy that still brags about this.
Even if he did that, I wouldn't like him. Even if he's like came out, I gave it to charity, I'd be like, I don't care. I think he's a grifter. I don't listen to a lot of his stuff, so I'm not going to give too much of an opinion on him.
I was just curious.
But when he said that he converted to being a Muslim and then he was drinking alcohol on a plane, I'm like, what is this guy doing? You know?
Yeah. No, I completely. And then he's.
A lot of people like him. I don't have time for him. Honestly, I get a lot of hate for this, but I don't really like listening to Jordan Peterson either.
I'm not. Jordan Peterson is a lot better than Andrew Tate, I think.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that guy talks in almost a different language.
Yeah,
it's almost another language.
It's weird. I'm more obsessed with like what's going on in geopolitical issues with that type of stuff. I don't really care about the cultural issues that much because I think we're at a crossing point where America is fundamentally going to change, and the next 50 years is going to be a different
we're being
country.
invaded, and we'll get into that in the next or in 2 seconds.
And so I honestly think like the trans issues and a lot of those issues just don't matter nearly as much as other stuff that's going on. Because if we get dragged into an actual world war, the
trans shit's going to go away real quick if we get dragged. Except for the people identifying as women so they don't get drafted.
And so is 30% of the American population, though. So I think that's way more crucial than I think we should should just all just stop pretending like, no, Leah Thomas, you're a guy, you can't swim with the girls. That guy that is a 50-year-old man, identifies as a woman in the UK, and is joined the women's swim team, I believe. The teenage girls, 13-year-old girls, he's allowed to change,
with them.
expose himself in front of these girls, and the girls are terrified and they're allowing it.
He'd be dead in the States.
Yeah,
he'd be dead.
I think all that's going to go away if we actually hit the real shit to the fan, so I really don't care.
Yeah. All the well, I mean, it's
I'll let other people fight those battles.
If you go to countries in Africa, in the Middle East, in South America, if you go to really, really poor parts like rural Appalachia, the trans shit doesn't exist there.
Because there's hardship.
They deal with real issues.
Yeah. When there's real issues, that shit stops.
I'm not saying there aren't people in suburban America that don't deal with real issues, but it's nothing compared to the issues they're dealing with. They have actual problems to deal with. We live in such a comfortable lifestyle that we have to create things to feel oppressed by, otherwise we get bored.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
I like to use the social issues when I talk to somebody that's ignorant about what's going on in the world. I'll start off with some social issues to talk to them, to kind of open up their mind to what the left is doing and what these kind of progressive types are doing and what they're allowing. And then that'll upset them. And they'll be like, hey, but they're also trying to trick us into a world war.
Yeah.
That's the other part that you need to know, that you're being lied into a war right now.
The globalists are using the super social progressive. Oh, I'm so...
But who are the globalists?
I'm so tolerant. The World Economic Forum, the intelligence agencies, the mainstream media, the global banks. What's that?
What kind of people?
There's all kinds of people.
I'm not going to go there. But
I know you're going to say the Jews, and we disagree on that. I don't think it's a Jewish conspiracy because Klaus Schwab's parents were Nazis.
Yeah, but the second in command of the SS was also Jewish.
Yeah, but was he really, though?
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to do... I mean, there's retards. Who was the second? What was his name? I'll look him up.
Just look it up. I read it about 2 weeks ago that a leader in the SS was actually Jewish.
But the Nazism wasn't a Jewish conspiracy, though.
No, but
that guy's a one-off. I mean,
I'm not going to get too much into it because I'm not really anti-Semitic. But if you want to look into the fact that every single person that came out in an article in like the Atlantic, the Rolling Stones, the Verge, that was adoring the movie Cuties by Netflix, which is softcore pornography for teenagers, look up them and then look up their early life on Wikipedia, and it's going to mention a synagogue. Every single one of them. Every single person, every single journalist that was condemning the Sound of Freedom, which was about human sex trafficking, look up their early life. I don't think, as a people, I'm not married to this belief. I'm not married to this belief at all.
Okay. So I'm looking up who the second in command of the SS was, and it says I've got Kurt Deluge, and he was not raised Jewish.
No.
So if you can come up with a guy's name, I'd be happy to look it up, but I'm not. I do have to call that out there. I'm looking at it right now, and I can't see that he's Jew. I don't see that the guy was Jewish. So if there's somebody else, and I'm reading the wrong thing or something, I'd be more than happy to admit I was wrong. But right now, I'm looking, and second in command was not Jewish.
Okay.
We can look it up later.
We can look it up later.
We don't have to do it on the spot here. But let us know in the comments on YouTube or Rumble if I'm wrong. Maybe I missed the guy who got the wrong name. I don't know. But I looked up the hierarchy of the SS, and he was not, the second in command was not Jewish. So, but nonetheless, no, I mean, the globalists, they're pushing this inclusive, tolerance, progressive social policy here domestically, and then internationally and globally, it's war, death, killing, conquest. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, they're trying to get you to not reproduce, which I think is more scary than anything else. On the home front, I think that's
depopulation. Absolutely, it's the worst.
Yeah,
thing.
Well,
it's in the water we drink.
Is it depopulation or is it population replacement?
Isn't that the same thing?
No, because like right now we have a thriving middle class, and we have power because we have economic power by having the middle class and by owning property. We have economic growth that's generational, and it's not going to go away. But if you bring in a wave of migrants and whatnot that have nothing and are come back to being just factory workers and whatnot, they're going to have no economic power. Then they're going to have no political power on the back of that. And then you also add on top of that the welfare state, and you give them all these free stuff on the top of it and go, daddy government will take care of you. But if you get to a certain level of economic strength, they take away your welfare. So a lot of people out in the country, they can't work over 32 hours or else they'll lose benefits from the government.
Yep.
And that's a control method. It's a guise to make you think that they're helping you, but they're really keeping you down.
Everything,
and you're always going to vote for the party that's going to keep that money coming.
It's about getting you, it's about getting you dependent on them. Just like when we talk about like the electric cars. They know that, number one, the grid can't sustain everyone replacing their gas-powered car with it's impossible. Number two, the average person can't afford it. Number three, it's completely unsustainable because they don't have enough room to dispose of the batteries. They know that. It's not about that. They're not under the illusion that every single person's going to drive an electric car. They're going to replace the electric cars with public transport. So now your freedom of movement's been limited, and you depend on the government to get from point A to point B, and you have to go on a schedule. You can't get up and
like
go whenever you want.
City type
you
stuff.
Get on. Yeah, it's all of because that's the same
it's serfdom.
people.
It's serfdom. Yeah, it's marrying you to the land.
These same people are the ones that are all pushing for these 15-minute cities. Why can't we have 15-minute cities where everything's bunched up? Because, again, people that live in rural areas, much more likely to be independent, much more likely to be self-sufficient, much less likely to need the government when they live on their own out there. They're much more capable of taking care of themselves. So it's about getting those people out, eradicating them, labeling them as the enemy, and getting them to conform into society.
I think a good way to dismiss the climate change argument is, first of all, you need to point out that the people that are trying to push all the climate change agenda and whatnot, they fly on private jets to go meet. Just right off the bat, that's an hypocrisy. And then second, they say it's a humanitarian thing. We need to save the planet. We need to save the human race by implementing all these stuff in these first world countries that are. Then who are we to deny India, China, and all the third world that has not had the prosperity of coal burning plants and electricity and hot showers and toilets?
We used it all up.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Who
Too
are
late.
we to deny, what is it, 3-4 billion people on this earth, the luxuries that we have?
Sorry, China. You
that
don't get
is
to use it.
ludicrously ridiculous.
We used it all up.
And you could almost argue it's white supremacy. It's saying that we're the better ones, and now that we had it, we realized it was bad, so now you can't have it because we know what's better for you.
Hey guys, we're the guy that got lung cancer from smoking for 50 years. Telling you not to have a cigarette.
I know you may be looking at my Escalade and thinking it would be really nice to be riding on butterfly doors, but
hey, I know I was a
we
whore.
tried it out and it's not good, so you can't have it.
I know I was a whore and had sex with 45 different people before I got married, but you should wait until marriage. That's the equivalent. Yeah. That was not me. I didn't.
That's every Catholic you'll ever meet too. I just want to point that out. I love my Catholic brothers, but we are all hypocrites when it comes to that one.
Everyone is. Dude, listen.
I respect the ones that wait, though. I really do.
Here's my thing, and I don't want to go too deep because we still got other segments to do. But
we're still in the first segment.
Yeah, I know. Here's the thing, man. I'll leave it at this, and we'll get into the next segment. If you're gonna buy a car, test drive it first. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to click the link in the description to get the full episode on Rumble. If you prefer to listen along, you could actually get us on Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also go to www.outlawstreamers.com to learn more about not just my show, but tons of other great shows and all the exciting projects they have coming up. Follow my socials at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram, at Caleb Salvatore Comedy on the Chinese Spy app that is TikTok, and be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks, and we'll see you every Saturday for brand new episodes of That's Based. Peace.